reaction back to tit for tat. Back to all right, all right.
Hi, thanks for joining everybody. We're just waiting for the last few people to jump in. While you're waiting, if you haven't done already, if you just go to the Mentee thing, this is the part where I feel like a school teacher, and fill out your answer, that would be great. We'll get started once I stop admitting people in. Okay, let's just make a start, and I might have to just admit a few people as we go. But my name is Tash. I am one of the co-founders of Future Frontline. I'm also a medical student, trying to learn more about the multidisciplinary team as I go along. But if you are new to Future Frontline is a completely free of charge educational platform trying to inspire the next generation of healthcare workers and help them in the process of applying to uni and starting uni, being at uni, and all of that stuff. A bit of housekeeping. If you can all mute yourselves and turn off your videos, that will be great. Yes, and then at the end, we will have a Q&A session where you can either turn on your microphone, or if you're too scared, just pop it in the chat. But hold your questions till the end, as otherwise the chat can be a little bit distracting for everybody. We're going to try and keep this session more to a work experience event, in the sense that trying to learn more about the role of a midwifery student and a qualified midwife, as opposed to what A-level grades do I need, where can I apply to, that kind of thing, if that's okay. If there's a demand for more sort of entry process and that kind of stuff, then we'll do that separately. But yeah, Future Frontline has a website where blog posts are shared by aspiring and current healthcare students, and occasionally some healthcare professionals. We're present on all forms of social media, even YouTube now, which is very exciting. We have a podcast, which again, I think is a really good way of finding out more about different healthcare roles. And I'd really encourage you, even if you are at the moment really considering midwifery, that's brilliant. But it's so important to understand the the multidisciplinary team. So yeah, have a read of our blog post. And again, some of you hopefully may be watching on Facebook on the live stream if this is going to plan. But we have a private Facebook group, which is supposedly more of a support community where we can all share things. You guys can share things on there and people can give answers. So just to tell you about some of our core missions, so it goes without saying the NHS is so much more than doctors and nurses. I think when we last looked, there was currently over 300 different healthcare roles that in the NHS. And obviously, well, I say obviously, but not so obviously, some people, the future is with collaborative practice at the center of everything we do in healthcare. And yeah, finally, just how I said, Future Frontline will always be free for students and, well, everybody else for that matter at the moment. I don't see that changing. But yeah, socioeconomic status should never be a barrier to pursuing a career in healthcare. Oh no, I've gone too fast now. So I'm going to just see, this is the bit where I'm a 50-year-old woman. I'm just going to pop over to the Menti thing now, and hopefully we will be able to see some of your answers. How do I slideshow this? Present. Let's see what everybody has said. Support, empower, inspirational, advocacy. These are really nice. Women's rights, incredibly important. It's a privilege. This is really nice, really, really nice. So just wanted to get you thinking about maybe why are you here in the first place. So I'm really excited to announce, let me just jump out of this. I can't multitask. So yeah, I'm super, super excited to be joined by some amazing, amazing speakers today. We've got one midwifery student, Fiona, and we've got 4 amazing qualified midwives who are all quite present on social media as well, hence why I found you guys and asked you to come and share your life really as a midwife. So we've got Sarah, we've got Hannah, we've got Melissa, and last but not least we've got Marie. So would you all like to just pop on, say hello? I think you'll all do a better job at introducing yourselves than I will. Fiona, do you want to say hi to everybody? Tell us where you're studying, what year you're in,
or whatever the radio station is.
Yeah.
And say yeah.
Sound. Hi, so my name's Fiona and I am a 3rd year midwifery student. So I am training currently at Canterbury in Kent. In my training, we stay at one hospital. I'm quite fortunate. The hospital I train at, we have a standalone centre, so a standalone birth centre. So I work at 2 different sites.
Brilliant. And I think, as I was saying to some of the speakers just before we started, it's really important to get an understanding of what it's like to be a student as well as a professional, as that is going to be 3 years of your life. And Sarah, you're next on my screen. Where are you based? What do you do?
So I'm Sarah. I qualified in August last year, so I'm very newly qualified. I actually didn't start practicing until the 5th of October, so I'm almost 6 months started actually working now as a midwife. I'm based at Medway Hospital in Kent. I also trained at Canterbury with Fiona, so I was just the cohort above Fiona. So the trust I work at is a really busy trust. We have an on-site midwife-led unit, so it all kind of happens along the one corridor. You can kind of go from the midwifery-led unit through to the postnatal ward, through to the antenatal ward, delivery suite, theatres, and the special care baby unit. It's all on the one sort of platform. It's really good. We've got an excellent research centre and fetal medicine unit that are linked with King's. So we have lots of research projects going on there all the time, and they have an absolutely outstanding scanning department. So we have lots of high-risk women because of that, because lots of women actually get transferred to our trust because of the care they receive there, because of the level of research, etc. So yeah, it's good. It's where I trained as well. So I've kind of been there already as a student for 3 years previously. And just very lucky that I managed to get a job there because that's where I wanted to work. I didn't want to work anywhere else. So yeah, so at the moment I'm still finding my feet. I've already been on the postnatal ward, the antenatal ward. I've done a couple of shifts, but I'm currently on the delivery suite, which I was dreading, but I'm loving it, surprisingly. So yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it, but still so much to learn. So much to learn.
Amazing. It would be really nice to hear from you as sort of a newly qualified midwife as well. And yeah, how that's been making the progress from the process from student to qualified professional. Melissa, you're next on my list. Do you want to say hello?
Hi, so I'm Melissa. I've been a midwife for just over 4 years. I've done quite a few things in that time, like publish articles and present at conferences, and I've just won an award from my old uni. And I did a master's in genomic medicine, and I'm currently halfway through my professional doctorate at the University of Bath, in which I'm researching UK paramedics' experiences of providing pre-hospital maternity care. So yeah, that's me.
Sounds super interesting. I want to know more about that. I was saying in the last work experience event we did, I always start these events and I'm like, okay. And then by the end, I'm like, I should have done this healthcare degree. Great. Hannah, are you there? Are you battling with your children?
Hello, yeah, dogs at the moment. So if you hear lots of barking, I'm so sorry. So I'm Hannah. I have been qualified since September. I currently work at Portsmouth Hospital Trust. I changed jobs yesterday. I was a main unit midwife working on a high-risk obstetric unit for 6 months. We have babies flown into our hospital from Jersey, Guernsey, the West Country, all over. It's a really exciting unit to work at, but I've moved into a continuity of care team. So I've got a small caseload now, 35 women that I see from their booking appointment, every single appointment, and then I follow them wherever they give birth and do all of their postnatal care as well. So it's a really beautiful way of working. And on top of that, I teach hypnobirthing, pregnancy relaxation, and write a little blog as well. So that's me.
Amazing. I seem to have sort of accidentally but brilliantly got a real mix of midwives. So I'm glad I've done that. And finally, last but not least, Marie.
Hiya, yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I just want to say that it's amazing what you do here and what you've started up, Tash. Massive well done.
Thank you. You're making me blush.
No, it is. Yeah, hats off. So my name's Marie Louise. I am an NHS midwife. I qualified in 2012. So yeah, almost a decade ago now, which makes me feel really old. But I have done a lot since I qualified as a midwife. I have practiced internationally. I also have a book published by Penguin called The Modern Midwife's Guide to Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond. I also qualified as a hypnobirthing teacher. I run an Instagram account and have been featured on TV and stuff like that. And I also provide online antenatal classes and courses and postnatal courses. And I recently had my first baby myself. So thanks so much for having me. I mean, I know that's quite a lot. At the moment, I'm on maternity leave. I plan to go back to the hospital that I practice at, University College London, UCLH, it's known as, which is a very busy teaching hospital in London that has a very impressive fetal medicine unit, and I tend to work quite a lot on day assessment unit. That's one of my favourite places to work, and also the birth centre.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. Those were really nice introductions. Yeah, you gave us a really good insight into what you guys get up to. And it's so nice that you all seem to have something outside of midwifery as well. It's something that we're definitely trying to encourage at Future Frontline. Life is so much more than just your job. So I think if we go back to the first question that I asked all the participants, and why midwifery? You know, there's so many healthcare careers. What was it about midwifery that lit the spark and you were like, this is for me? So maybe we'll start with, this is just a really random, Sarah.
Yeah, do you know what? This is a really difficult one for me to answer because I wanted to be a midwife for so long. So I'm 38 now, but when I think I must have been about 20, 21 when I first wanted to do it. It first kind of came into my mind that I wanted to be a midwife. and I can't remember why. I can't remember why I wanted to be a midwife then. That's not something, but it's always been there. And I didn't have science GCSE at a C grade or above. So for me, it was always a case of, I don't think I can do it because I don't have that. And naively, I didn't realise you could do access courses and things like that until much later. And by then I was already in the throes of saving for a house and having a baby and things like that. So when I think back, do you know, I genuinely, I can't remember. I know though, it's never been about babies, which I know at first a lot of people always think that's why you want to be a midwife, but I know for a fact that it definitely was never about that. I think myself, I can always say that I'm a real girl's girl. I love women. I think we're amazing. And birth has always really interested me. Even thinking back to school, I remember I was always really interested in how, just like the reproductive system, how babies are made, like, oh my goodness, what a miracle is that. So I know I was always really obsessed with that, even at school age. So I just don't know if it kind of filtered through from there, but it's just always been a constant in my life, really, from being about 20 onwards. So I just always knew it was something I wanted to do at some point. But why, I think there's many different elements of why. And then having my son myself just kind of really made me want to definitely pursue it at some point. But so I think yeah, there's just always been an interest there, but there's not actually a specific thing that made me definitely want to do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so nice to hear from somebody that, you know, hasn't gone straight into it after school. I think that's really important. And I think your answer kind of really fitted with somebody else's comment on the Mentimeter thing, saying empowerment and empowering women. And yeah, it was really nice. I've never thought about, you know, thinking about it, not the babies, but actually the mothers is such a big part. Let's see, this is like an idiot's guide to midwifery for me. Hannah, why midwifery?
It's always the hardest question to answer, to be honest. It's the one that you dread in your midwifery interview. Why do you want to be a midwife? Because it's such a big question. I first wanted to be a midwife, I don't really know. I think it was when I was pregnant with my first child. I watched my midwife and I thought, that's really cool what she was doing. But I put it to the back of my mind. My first child is disabled. My second child came along really quickly. My husband left when I was pregnant. So I thought, I can't do that. And then just started to think, oh, maybe I can, we'll think about it. And I started volunteering for the Breastfeeding Network, which is a peer support charity that supports women with breastfeeding. And I ended up becoming the project lead locally for that. And I specialised in the 0 to 28 day babies and would sit there at the local birth centre, and the women would come to me with their newborn babies. And like Sarah, I don't really like babies, if I'm honest. They're fine, I'll give them a good cuddle, but I will give them back because they're boring. I love women. They're such interesting creatures. And I would sit there and they would always, without fail, tell me all about their birth and debrief about their birth. And quite often they weren't the most positive stories, and they were very disempowered women. And I thought, the only way I can really help these women is to go and be with them right from the very, very beginning. So I went and did my access course and thought, oh, I'll just apply to uni. I can't really go to uni because I'm a single mum and I've got 2 kids and who knows where my ex-husband lives. But then I got offered a place and thought, well, I'll give it a go. And here I am. So yeah, don't really know why I wanted to be a midwife, but I love it.
Brilliant. I think it's always such a hard question, especially, you know, I think, like you said, at interviews, it's just the one you dread. It can be so hard putting into words your feelings, but I mean, both of your answers are brilliant and make complete sense. I think, you know, it's the most personal thing it is, however personal it is, if you can share that and put that into words, your passion will come across at an interview or whoever you're speaking to. Marie, I know you have to leave us a little bit early, so it'd be nice to hear from you. Why midwifery all those years ago, as you said?
Sure. As well, Hannah, you are absolutely amazing, by the way. I don't know how you managed to do that with 2 children on your own. No, that's okay. Seriously, I did it when I first came out of school. I was single, but which was great because I didn't have to care about anybody else, and I just can't imagine doing that. So yeah, that's incredible. So I think my interest in midwifery started from a really young age, actually, when my mum was pregnant with my little brother. And I was absolutely fascinated. I remember that we went, I was only 4 years old, so I didn't quite understand what pregnancy was. And obviously my parents did their best to tell me without telling me all of the details. But I have a really clear memory of when I went to the hospital to meet my brother for the first time. And my dad actually has a photo of it. And I'm looking at my mum, and I genuinely thought that my mum had a superpower, that she could grow these little humans. And it was only when I got to an older age that I realized that pregnancy is something women have been doing for millennia. And I didn't get the answers that I needed from my teachers at school. So I asked my science teacher, yes, but you're not explaining to me, how does a person grow another person like this? And I felt like the only person in the world that had all of these questions about pregnancy and how we are all here. And I clearly remember as well, I said to one of my science teachers, so what you're telling me is basically like you get a load of ingredients in a kitchen, you go out and you come home to a perfectly baked cake that can take itself out the oven, because that's what natural pregnancy and low risk pregnancy and natural childbirth basically reflects, isn't it? Like, but you're not telling me how that happens. I want to know how the cake's baked. So anyway, it was only, everyone deterred me from midwifery. I was only 16, 17. Everyone said to me, you won't get in. You're too young. You're too inexperienced. Yeah, you haven't got children yourself. And yeah, everybody put me off, including the career advisors at my school. I didn't listen to anybody. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that I would be a good midwife. And I think, as kind of like big-headed as that sounds, it's a classic cliche thing, but it really was a bit of a calling for me. I needed to know how pregnancy worked. I needed to understand the placenta more. I wasn't getting answers from the people that were supposedly teaching me. And I think that passion and that genuine want to understand this process came across in my interview. And then as I actually started my training, my passion for midwifery just ignited further and further, and the want and desire to empower women, to inform women, to be by their side. And you know, I totally agree with what both Sarah and Hannah have said about as well, like that I love women and I love talking to women, I love being around women, and I'm also a real girl's girl. So that really grew, that side of me really grew, and I guess I kind of grew with midwifery as I grew into my adulthood, because I started at I was only just 18. I think I was like, the month previous to that I was 17, so I started a month after you know, my 18th birthday. So I was really young, and just feel like, yeah, midwifery grew with me, which has been an incredible thing. So anyone that's told you can't do it, you shouldn't do it. If you want to do it, go for it. And if Hannah can do it, like, wow, you can do it.
Amazing. I can just tell, all three of you, the way you're speaking, your passion and your love for it really comes through. And I think everybody watching this, take note. This is how you need to talk about it at an interview. You don't need to say, I'm passionate about this. Your passion will come through in the way you're speaking. And I think, yeah, you all have just highlighted, and we've still got two. I haven't forgotten Fiona and Melissa. But so far we've shown that, you know, all three of you have had very different routes into midwifery, but, you know, come out of it at the end, you know, all brilliant midwives. Melissa.
Yeah, Hannah's also my idol. I just wanted to I make that very clear on my Instagram, embarrass her now. Yeah, I'm also not very fond of babies either, so I'm definitely in it for the women. But so when I was younger, my brother was stillborn and my mum was just treated awfully, and so I just, by the age of 14, when I knew like some of my peers were getting pregnant and having babies, and I saw what the role of the midwife was, so I just decided then that I wanted to be a midwife. And like Marie, my careers advisor didn't even know what midwifery was. They thought it was nursing, it was a branch of nursing that you went into. And yeah, everyone tried to defer me because they said, you're 17, you're not going to get in, you haven't had kids, you haven't got life experience and things. Yeah, and I just didn't listen to them, and I'm obviously glad I didn't listen. So yeah, but really for me, midwifery just encompasses everything that I'm passionate about: empowering women and birthing people, because obviously not everyone who gives birth is a woman, and advocating for their rights and educating them about their choices, and just walking with them, providing unbiased guidance and support through some of the most joyous times of their life, but also sometimes the most heartbreaking times of their lives as well. And that I find bereavement care really, really rewarding. So yeah, that, like, it's just not every day you get to go to work and witness everyday miracles. And I don't just mean you know, catching babies kind of thing, like even like antenatal is my personal favorite, and even postnatal, like everything is a miracle. Everything about the perinatal journey is just a complete miracle. Like when I leave a shift and I see strangers in the street, I just want to scream, like, do you know what I just did all night? Like, do you know what I just witnessed? Yeah, I just love midwifery.
I love that so much. I love the last bit you said. It's brilliant. You should do that, by the way.
I will one day.
Brilliant. And finally, Fiona.
So it's interesting to hear the other midwives and what they've said, because I think I can pull on quite a lot of what they've said. So agreeing with Melissa and Marie, like when I went to a grammar school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school, but because it was a grammar school, they really pushed for us to go to university. So I went to a open day at the uni thinking about doing something to do with nursing. When I spoke to my careers advisors about it, they were a bit unaware what nursing is, midwifery. So when I did the open day, I wandered into the midwifery bit and kind of just fell in love with it and was like, this is what I want to do. When I then went back to university, start writing my school, even to write my personal statement and things, everyone was just like, you won't be a midwife. They didn't really have the knowledge to support me with it. So I did apply, and I didn't get in because of my grades. So I had BBC and you needed 3 Bs. So I was like, what do I do now? Like, I've decided this is what I want to do. So I decided to go into childcare and try and get in that way. So I worked in childcare for 6 years, worked my way up that, became a manager, and did my level 2 and level 3 childcare diploma. Applied for university again, thinking I've got everything I need now. And then again, they told me that I was inexperienced and I didn't have enough background to go into it. So I attended open days, study days, like attended breastfeeding clinics. I thought I will do absolutely everything I can. Like, I've got my mind set on this now, I need to do it. And then I applied again and I did get in, luckily. So 3rd time's the charm. So it can be a case that you fall at the first hurdle, but don't let that put you off. And then, yeah, so I'm now in my 3rd year of training and I've covered most areas within my training. And I think with midwifery, I just love the idea that you can literally walk into a room and that family become your best friend. Like, you don't even need to know somebody for that long. You have to build that rapport so quickly. And I do think it has to be a personality that you have. You have to have that personality trait, but it's amazing how you can just connect with people so quickly. And literally what Melissa said, I walk into Sainsbury's sometimes and I think, nobody knows what I've just done. Like, nobody knows that I've just seen a baby be born or held a woman's hand while she's crying, and just everything that comes with midwifery. Like, nobody gets it. And even like my friends and my family, like, nobody understands it until you're in it. And it's just amazing.
I get it from the way you all speak about it. Yeah, I get it now. Or I think I get it. I probably don't get it as much as I would. But yeah, that's just amazing. And the fact that you persisted, I'm so glad that 3rd time lucky. I'm sorry that you had to go through those rejections, but thank goodness they finally let you in, because you'll be a great midwife. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, I just said I think it makes you as a person. Like, in retrospect, I'm kind of glad I didn't get in when I was 18, fresh out of school, because I think I've changed as a person because of it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And Marie, I know we have to say goodbye to you soon, but could you briefly touch on what your typical day is? What's your life as a midwife plus Instagrammer plus author? What's it all like before you leave us?
Yeah, so I can actually, if everyone's okay with it, I need to feed my baby before my next meeting. So I will stay on for a little bit longer, and then I'll just get my partner to bring her up. So in terms of clinical practice, obviously I'm on maternity leave at the moment because I have a young baby. But as previously mentioned, the area that I really love to work is DAU or MFAU, and that stands for Day Assessment Unit or Maternal Fetal Assessment Unit. And the reason that I love that area is because you get to see a real range of various different women with different problems. And so you might see, for example, a lady who is 6 weeks with hyperemesis, or you might see a woman who is 42 weeks and not wanting to be induced and has come for a bit of monitoring, and everything in between, women that are bleeding, women that need to be seen very urgently, women that can wait a little while. And I really love that array. And I think that it really keeps me on my toes, if I'm honest as well, as a clinical practitioner, because it means that I need to have such a wide variation of understanding of pregnancy if we are looking after women for 6 weeks with hyperemesis, right up until to being overdue, for example. And as mentioned, and everything in between. I mean, Day Assessment Unit can be a little bit of a place to work where you just get to see a bit of everything. And I also love working on the birth centre. And have worked in every area of maternity, but those are my two favourite places. And I love the birth centre because I really do enjoy looking after women in a relaxed home from home kind of environment. And I tend to thrive. I think that my skills are really highlighted when I work alongside women in that way. And you know, I have spent a lot of time on Delivery Suite. I spent years on Delivery Suite, and I do enjoy working on Delivery Suite, but my favorite place is the birth center, because then I can really use my skills when it comes to hypnobirthing, for example. And I think that as a midwife, I'm able to provide midwifery-led care wholeheartedly, because there isn't input from obstetrics, because it's not required. Now, if it's required, of course, I love to stay with my ladies, and we'll transfer across with them and ask if at all possible that I stay with them. And that is more likely now, as we are going with the continuity of carer in many hospital units around the UK. So yes, all in all, that's where my sort of main interests are. But just to mention, for anyone that is thinking of going into midwifery at the moment, there's such a huge variation of what life of midwife looks like, and my variation is not necessarily the norm. Sometimes there are community midwives, for example, that work in a very different setting, and also look after women in a home birth setting. And then, as mentioned, there's Delivery Suite midwives. You might have midwives that practice predominantly in clinics and work alongside obstetricians, or perhaps they're running their own clinics. You maybe have a specialist midwife that specializes in diabetes, for example, or perinatal mental health. The thing about midwifery is that there is so much opportunity for you to choose which area. So a lot of the time people think, oh, you're a midwife and all you do is deliver babies. That's not the case at all. There are so many different things that you can do within midwifery. And for me as well, personally, being a midwife has given me so much opportunity to also, you know, write a book, for example. I never thought the day that I started my midwifery training that I would end up being a published author. And I think that having that kind of the knowledge and expertise that comes with midwifery, actually I can apply that to a hell of a lot of my life. And like the risk assessments that I use at work, I also use them at home. And the communication skills that I've learned at work, I also use them in a wide variation of settings. So, you know, all in all, there's so much that comes with midwifery that it's difficult to say what we do in one day, and it definitely depends on the area that you work, but you learn such a huge variation of skills. And for me, that has probably been one of the most amazing things, that I'm definitely a better person in every aspect of my life after becoming a midwife. And that's no exaggeration.
Yeah, that's so lovely. And I think, you know, for my idiot's guide to midwifery, that point that it's not all about birth is so important. And for you, it's probably obvious, but yeah, just that's so important. And someone's put in the chat, this is making me want it even more. And I know I'm, as time goes on, I'm like, why didn't I do midwifery now? I've been signed up to be a paramedic, an OT, a physio so far since Future Frontline. Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know it must be hard to put everything that you do into 5 minutes or so of speaking. Melissa, could we hear from you next? I'm really interested to hear about your sort of academia side of things as well.
So I don't really have a typical day because I'm doing my doctorate full time. Well, obviously distance at the moment because of COVID, but it's still full time. So I do bank. So when I first qualified, when I was a newly qualified midwife, I worked full time for about 21 months before starting my master's, which I did that full time in a year as well. So at the moment, I just do bank as and when I can. I could literally, because the NHS is chronically understaffed, I could book a shift for tonight if I wanted to. So there's lots of availability. So it works well for me. But what I like about bank is that I can book a shift in any area that I want, because as I say, there's probably going to be availability. So I can keep my skills up because I'm not working full time anymore. I can keep my skills up in lots of different areas. But when I was a newly qualified midwife for all of my band 5 and most of my band 6 as well, I was a community midwife, which has been my favourite area from day one as a student. Like my first ever placement in midwifery, 6 weeks into the degree, was in community, and I just had the most amazing mentor. She was just incredible, and I got to work alongside her when I was qualified as well. And because in community you get the antenatal, which is my favourite area of midwifery, and you get the intrapartum as well because you attend home births. And whenever I was on call, I'd almost all the time be called either to a home birth or to delivery suite quite a lot as well when they were short staffed there at night. So I got to still like go into theatre and keep up my high risk as well as the low risk home births. And then of course you get postnatal home visits as well, which are just lovely. So yeah, that's what I do at the moment, studying full time, but banking wherever I can, really.
And is your master's in genomics something you said?
Yeah,
what
my
made
master's.
you interested in that, maybe?
So my brother, the reason he was stillborn was for a really rare genetic condition. So I've always been interested in genetics, and then I learned what genomics was and how it differed to genetics. And genomics are just incredible. Like, I nearly did my PhD in cancer genomics, but I changed, and I'm glad I changed. But yeah, genomics are just absolutely incredible. And in the midwifery degree, you don't really, I barely knew what a Punnett square was when I started the degree, my master's, and everyone else had genetic undergraduate degrees in biomedicine, or they worked in laboratories. And so I had a lot of catching up to do compared to everyone else, but I don't regret it or anything. It has made me a better midwife because when you talk about antenatal screening, for example, Down screening or the trisomies and things, I can talk really in depth with the women and their families about what the results might mean and stuff like that. So it has informed my midwifery practice as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sarah, I haven't asked you this already. I'm already losing the plot. What's your newly qualified midwife life like? What do you get up to?
So the trust I work in, I go in at a band 5. So I'm a band 5 at the moment, and I'm doing my preceptorship competencies at the moment. So I get a booklet, so even though I've qualified and I've finished uni, the learning never ends as a midwife. Let me just put that out there. It never ends for your whole career. But especially for this first year, I still have lots of competencies that you can't do as a student, but that you still need to be signed off of. So that's what it's like at the trust and the uni that I've trained at. I can't obviously speak for all unis, but such as cannulation, suturing, applying a fetal scalp electrode to baby's head to monitor baby's heartbeat that way, managing your time on the wards. There's lots in this booklet that I have a year to kind of get it all filled out. So by October this year, I should, in theory, receive my band 6, get my band 6 role. So as a newly qualified midwife, I actually started off in the maternity care unit, which is kind of like what Marie was talking about. It's like at the trust I work at, it's like a low risk triage. So if a woman's bleeding and things like that, they go upstairs to actual the triage up on delivery suite. But the maternity care unit I worked in was reduced fetal movements, obstetric cholestasis, preeclampsia or hypertensive disorders, all things like that. We saw all of the women, or if they had thrush, thinking that their waters are gone, anything like that, we would see them. And that was my first ever placement as a newly qualified midwife. And I'd never actually worked there as a student. So I had no idea what I was going into, but oh my goodness, I fell in love with it. I would actually say it's a massive contender for me kind of going forwards, thinking future wise. I'd never thought of working in that area, but actually it's cemented for me that I think antenatal care is definitely where my real love is. I think that's definitely where my main thing is. So yeah, I worked there for 9 weeks. I was on there, and then like rotated. So then I ended up on the postnatal ward, which I loved as a student. I'll be honest, I've fallen out of love with it a little bit as a qualified midwife. I think just because it was Christmas time I was there, so like December time, it was the height of the pandemic. Living in the southeast, it was quite bad where we were. There wasn't a shift where I didn't look after COVID positive women. We had people off, isolated. It was just I think it was just kind of like came at a time where not only was it stressful being at work because of the pandemic, also I was in a really busy ward. So I'm kind of hoping I fall back in love with it because I really loved it as a student. And what happens is, as a newly qualified midwife, you have a couple of supernumerary shifts where you aren't counted in the numbers and you work alongside a midwife kind of, and then you're kind of flying solo. So on the ward, for instance, I would have like a set number of women that had kind of been assigned to me as such. And what you kind of do is you just like set out your day, what you've got to do, what jobs you actually need to definitely get done. And again, with anything, it's typical of, I was there for, how long was I on the postnatal ward for? I started there beginning December and I finished there at the very end of January. So 1st of February was my first shift on delivery suite. And it was just at that point that I felt like I was starting to get to grips with it all. And I was starting to really have a hold of my day and understand what I was doing. And then it's like you moved on again. So I'm now on delivery suite. So I had 3 supernumerary shifts on delivery suite. I'll put my hands up and say I was petrified before going there. It was never my favourite place as a student. I am completely a low risk in my mind. I like to think of myself as I love low risk care. So I'm also a hypnobirthing instructor. I love using all of those sort of skills. I love real midwifery skills. And I feel that I don't get a chance to use those as much on the obstetric led unit. However, that's something that I actually think, again, going forward might be an area that I kind of want to go into why can't we use more of those skills on the obstetric led unit? Let's turn some of these rooms into looking a bit more what we see on the MLU. So my day as it is at the moment as a newly qualified midwife on the high risk, extremely high risk quite often obstetric led unit is you turn up for your shift, you go in, you look at the board. There's always that moment where you're kind of walking in and you're looking at the board and your heart's kind of going like this because you're thinking, like, what case am I going to be given? Unfortunately, a lot of inductions. I would say that's majority of our board a lot of the time, because if women are low risk and there's no problems, they usually choose to go to the midwife-led unit. So a lot of our board is more of the high risk inductions, etc. And you just, you take handover from the midwife that's already looking after the person and you just take over the care from there. Now, being newly qualified, I feel I spend most of my shift asking questions. I always say that I must be so annoying because all I do is ask questions. But especially on delivery suite with the high risk care that you're giving, for me it's so important that I get it right and that I know what I'm doing, that I don't ever pretend that I know what I'm doing when I don't, because you're talking about 2 lives here that you've really got to think about, and you can't be taking those risks. So as a newly qualified midwife going into the delivery suite, it's daunting. Every shift is daunting, but all I can say is from the trust I work at, I am so supported. I genuinely have not dreaded it at all, and I really thought I was going to. I've just been so supported. I know that anybody I ask for help is there, and I don't feel stupid asking a question, because nobody's made me feel stupid asking a question. In fact, quite the opposite. They say we'd much rather you ask than not ask. So yeah, I mean, I go to theatre obviously with women when they end up in theatre for forceps or cesarean sections. Again, something that I was dreading doing, because I felt as a student, I stood in theatre thinking, I have no idea what anybody's asking of me. Even as a third year student, I used to just think, I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to understand what they're asking of me, what they're even telling me. I felt like I didn't understand anything what anybody was ever saying. Plus the sheer amount of work, I was thinking, I'm never going to get this done in the kind of, not that there's a time frame, but there's a certain turnaround time you need to be talking about when you've been to theatre. And I was just thinking, I'm never going to do this, and yet I'm already doing it, because being the midwife now, I suppose as a student I found it quite easy to kind of slopey shoulder things to my midwife and say, oh, I'm still not confident with that, or I don't feel happy doing that, or could you do that? And they did it for me. Well, I'm now the midwife, I can't now say that. So actually being qualified has pushed me to do things probably a bit more than what I maybe realised I could do beforehand. And now I don't even dread going to theatre, and I genuinely dreaded it. I cannot tell you how petrified I was of going to the delivery suite and knowing that I was going to be providing all of this care. But I do put that down to the team that I work with, and just knowing that anybody that I ask a question to, I know they're there to help me. Doctors, anaesthetists, midwives, ODPs, on all of them, they're just amazing, and it just really explains how important it is to work as a team. But yeah, so as a newly qualified midwife, I would say I spend a lot of my time being scared about the next rotation. So actually I'm on delivery suite until middle of August. So I'm there a long time. So I went there 1st of Feb and I'm there till middle of August. Then I go to the antenatal ward for 2 months, and then I'm back to delivery suite, which I'm a little bit gutted about, because my other favourite area to work is the birthplace, is the midwife-led unit. And I haven't got that on my rotation as a band 5. So yeah, I'm a little bit gutted about that, but we don't do community as a band 5 midwife. We don't get to do that until we're a band 6 at the trust I work at. And again, it's just another thing I'm itching to get out to, because again, I think community is, I think I'm a very fickle one. I kind of change my mind a lot. I change my mind to where I'm working at that time is my favourite. But as a student, community was definitely my favourite area. And again, I'm just really looking forward to kind of potentially, well, I'm going to be the midwife now, I'm potentially kind of really honing in on that antenatal care that I love. And hopefully at some point, just trying to work some of my hypnobirthing into things as well. I'm trying to work out a way that I can try and get this in there. I'm trying to work out a way that I can already take over the world, but I don't mean it like that. I mean it as in, I'm just trying to find a way already that I can work that in there, especially antenatal education. I think it's an area that sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. I think it's an area that we maybe let women down a little bit, antenatal education. I think we need to do a lot more work with that, and actually I think that would have an impact on their pregnancy as a whole. But yeah, at the moment as newly qualified, I'm just, anything I get a chance to do, I do it. Anything that, because I've got to, I can't say no anymore. I'm not a student. I can't get away with I'm a student now. I have to do it. And if anybody says to me, do you want to try it? I say yes first, because the sooner you try it, the sooner you're going to get it done and you're going to feel more confident with it. But yeah, each day as it comes. I think it's the only way to describe it. Each day as it comes.
Great, thank you so much. And yeah, you briefly touched on one of my other questions about the multidisciplinary team, so we'll come back to that. Hannah, I think you might lead on nicely from what Sarah was saying. What's your typical day life like? What do you get up to?
So things have obviously just changed for me. I started my new job this week, but so I moved to a different trust than the one I trained in. So I moved from a very quiet, pretty low risk trust to a very big, very busy one. And I was pretty much thrown in the deep end big time. We don't rotate at my trust, so I started on the labour ward, but every day that you turn up, you are then allocated where you're going to be. So you can be on the labour ward, postnatal ward, antenatal ward, maternity assessment unit. Every day is different. You don't know till you get there, which sounds terrifying, but it's not. I'm getting used to it. 80% of the time I was on labour ward. So a normal day for me would be looking after a lady in premature labour, being there for that birth, getting her over to the ward afterwards. Then maybe I'd be called to go and be a second at home birth. Then I'll come back and maybe I'll go in and be a baby taker in theatre. So at my trust we have a scrub midwife, so I'll be in there with the scrub midwife and the ODP and the anaesthetist and the doctor. So there's a lot of different professions in there, and my job is to take the baby, which is quite nice. So yeah, every day is so different, really, really, really different. And in my new role, so I'm doing 2 months as a community midwife, so I'm spending most of my time on the birthing centre, so our low risk unit, on labour calls. So if someone's birthing in the community, having a home birth, I go as the second midwife. If they're on our standalone maternity unit, I've got to drive over there. Wherever the ladies need me, that's where I go. And then every week I've got a clinic antenatally, and I also do postnatal visits as well. But then it's all going to change in May because I'm going on to my new continuity of carer team, and I have to do 2 on-calls a week for my team's women, and then the rest of the week I see my caseload of women however I want to see them, whenever I want to see them, which is a really exciting way to be working. So my matron has basically said, if your women are happy at the end, I don't care how you work, just make them happy, make sure they do all of their appointments, do what you want with them. And they're already trying to get me to teach them some hypnobirthing. So I think I'm excited. I'm very excited. It's exactly how I want to work as a midwife. I'm the type of person that needs to know what your nan had for lunch last week. I want to know you very intimately. And the thing that I find hardest about places like labour ward is, hello, nice to meet you. My name's Hannah. I'm your midwife, and I need to put a catheter in you now because we're running off to theatre for a Cat 1 section, which is like our imminent risk to life cesarean. And I don't like that. So I've moved to community and I'm going to continuity, and I'm in a really good place. But being a newly qualified midwife is terrifying. It is a baptism of fire. It's your responsibility. You have 2 people's lives in your hands at all times, maybe more if you're on one of the wards. But actually at the same time, knowing that you give that care and you're looking after those women and those babies is amazing. You can make a really high risk situation. So I have babies as small as 22, 23 weeks gestation being born. I can still try and make that a positive experience for that woman. Even really, really high risk women can have positive experiences. I use a lot of my hypnobirthing in my practice, because like Sarah, I think every lady should have a really lovely birth. And yeah, I'm waffling now, but
No. Can you give us an idiot's guide to hypnobirthing?
yeah, so hypnobirthing is all about creating a really lovely environment for the woman, and also teaching them how to use their body's hormones in the most effective way with really deep relaxation. And the more that they understand about what their body's doing, and how to just allow those hormones to flow. So things like turning the lights down, finding ways to relax yourselves. Birth unfolds so much better if you leave women alone. The biggest thing that we do to interfere with birth is go anywhere near women. So it's finding ways for them to zone out, chill out, and let their body get on with what it needs to do. And you can do that even in a really high stress birth or a cesarean birth. Getting women into a really positive mind frame means that they can still have those lovely happy hormones. And you talk all about oxytocin, and the same hormone that made your baby, oxytocin, is the same hormone that's going to birth your baby, oxytocin, and feed your baby. And just teaching them all about those hormones is really lovely. and really sets them up for a positive parenting journey if you've, you know, laid down those foundations properly in pregnancy and birth and that immediate postnatal period. I am a big fan of skin to skin, and I put all of my babies right down their mum's tops instantly and don't let them take them out for hours. So oxytocin is a big thing.
Amazing. Thank you so much. When I say an idiot's guide, it's more for me than I'm sure everyone listening. But yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, that's really interesting. And finally, last but not least, Fiona, what's your life as a student midwife like?
So it's obviously changed a little bit now with COVID, but so the course where I'm training down in Canterbury, so when you sign up to the university, that at my university, they give you a selection of a couple of local trusts, and then you choose where is closer for you or easier for you. And they do try and take everything into consideration. So I got my second choice, but actually in hindsight, I'm really glad I got where I got. And then you stay at that trust for the 3 years of your training. The university and placement time is divided 50-50. So you tend to spend half your time on placement, half your time in uni learning with various assignments. So at my university in first year, we had what's called an OSCE. So you're given a couple of scenarios and you have to stand in front of a computer and a camera and an assessor and act out basically, whether it's giving an injection or breastfeeding advice. Sometimes you have to do essays, which can be like 4,000 words. Sometimes you have to do exams. So they try and cover a lot of different ways to assess you. You tend to have like 2 or 3 assessments a year, and then you get assessed out on placement as well. At my university, we also have an online portfolio, which we have to put reflections on and do online training and submit it all onto there. So in uni, we go into uni 2, maybe 3 days a week, online at the moment, but it's still about the same. So some people travel further for university than they do placement. I'm quite lucky, my university is 20 minutes up the road. However, my placement is about an hour away. So it kind of depends where you are planning to train and things like that. So when I'm on placement, we get moved around all the time. So different hospitals do it differently. I'm quite fortunate that our hospital puts it into blocks. So I will do like 6 weeks out on delivery suite. And kind of like what Sarah said, like as a student, every time I move on to a different placement, I'm like, this is my favorite. I love this. And then anytime, like I love delivery suite, and then I go back to community and I'm like, no, I want to be a community midwife. And then as soon as they're like, you're going back onto delivery suite, like we had it fairly recently, we did a week in community and then we got told we were going into delivery suite. So on the Friday, we were told Monday, you're back on delivery suite. And it was like, I haven't had time to prep myself and make myself back in that mindset. So I think I do get, even as a third year, and the midwives will tell you it's exactly the same, like Sarah was saying, as soon as you know that you're rotating into a different area, the anxiety does hit. But as soon as I walk in, get changed, and I'm on handover, I just calm down again. And I think that's part and parcel with it. So I've done triage, I've done antenatal, postnatal, delivery suite, community. When you're in community, I don't know if it's the same every university and every trust, but we are required to do on-calls. So we have to follow what our supervisor does. So you will normally get put with a midwife and they are your supervisor for that area. I've been very lucky in my community. I've had the same midwife that I've worked with for 3 years, which has benefited me because she's got to know me, I've got to know her. Like midwives work very differently. So when I'm on delivery suite, I tend to work with different midwives, and what one midwife might do all the time, another midwife will be like, I've never done that. And it's not a case of it's unsafe practice. It might be a case of underlining drugs in a red pen, and you go to do it and then the midwife's like, why are you doing that? It's just, and when you become a midwife, you're an autonomous practitioner, so you work on your own, so you can take different aspects of what you've learned from everyone. So when you're on delivery suite, you have to do night shifts, long days, late, earlies. You are required to do everything. I've just done a placement block and I'm in the middle of doing my dissertation. So it can be a case where you're having to do university work alongside placement. We have to do 30 hours a week. It's not paid. So I have a part-time job before COVID, because pubs have been shut down now. But so it is feasible. I'm fortunate. I don't have children. I don't have any other commitments. So I am able to work. And my work were really good. They just fit in wherever, because shifts aren't always the same. So it is feasible, because I know that's quite a common question that people want to know. But yeah, so it's just a lot of studying, like learning, even just learning your guidelines to where you're working. People like to ask you things like that, just keeping on top of everything. So it can be hard work, but I just think you need to be organised and passionate, and then it all comes together.
Amazing, thank you so much. I can definitely relate to like changing your mind about what specific area you want to go into. I think for me, if I see like a doctor that I'm like, you're really cool, I want your life, you look like you've got your life together, I'm going to be you. No problem, Marie, thank you so much for joining. I am conscious of time, so I'm going to ask each of you one last question, and then we're going to move on to some Q&A for the audience. If you can keep it short and snappy, that would be fabulous. So I'm going to ask Melissa and Hannah, could you maybe talk to us, what do you think are the key skills midwives need to have? So the skills that students can reflect on in their personal statements and interviews. And then Sarah and Fiona, I haven't missed anyone, no, 4. Sarah and Fiona, if you could talk about the members of the multidisciplinary team, maybe that midwives work with, that would be great. So Melissa, what skills in a nutshell, what skills do midwives need to be great midwives?
So I'd say that you need to be tenacious and resilient as well, because you will, just like in any profession, you will come up against people who bully you or just aren't very nice or unhappy in their own lives, kind of thing. So you need to be resilient, but also, wait, sorry, this is going to go off a tangent, but you need to know when to report it and escalate it, don't just take it, kind of thing. But yeah, and also, but you need to be patient as well with the people that you're caring for, and be creative and overcoming barriers. So they might have auditory or visual or sensory or learning disabilities, or they might have language barriers. Compassionate and empathetic, and be able to read people's body language well and respond accordingly. So something, when I was a student, I'm quite introverted, and some of my mentors, particularly on delivery suite, they were really extroverted, and it'd be the middle of the night, you'd have a primipon, Synto and an epidural, so she just wanted to sleep, but the mentor would just talk at her all night, and she'd say to me, you need to talk more at her. And when she left the room, the women and their partners would be like, can you just tell her to be quiet, I want to sleep. So you have to read the people you're caring for, each individual woman or birthing person's body language, and respond accordingly. Yeah, and a strong sense of self and self-confidence. Midwifery does change you as a person for the better. You need to have some degree, it's okay to have imposter syndrome, but you need to have some degree of self-esteem and self-confidence, otherwise you won't get through it. You need to have something. And if you are chosen, even for interviews, even if you don't get through in your first, second, third year, even like when I was applying, there's a woman on her 10th year applying. Don't know what happened to her, but I really hope she got in. Each year she didn't get in, she had another baby and another tattoo. So I really hope she, anyway, yeah. But yeah, basically, where have I even got to that from? Yeah, that's it. Sorry, you said keep it brief.
No, don't worry. You've made us all laugh in the process, so that's good enough for me. Thank you. Yeah, and I think that is really important. I think I always try to emphasize, if you get an interview, I mean, even if you don't get an interview, but if you get to an interview, you are brilliant. You're brilliant even before that. But yeah, be confident when you get to your interview, because they want you. It's just proving that you're the person on the personal statement, basically. Thank you. Hannah, skills, what skills?
I think mainly you have to learn to be really non-judgmental. You are going to meet people from all walks of life. You are going to find out all of their deepest, darkest secrets, and you've got to be able to keep it kind and professional. I think it's really important as a midwife to be really, really, really kind. You're going to know things about people that you might judge. You've just got to treat them all with the utmost respect. Unconditional positive regard is something that I was taught when I was a peer supporter, and it's something I've brought into midwifery. You don't know someone's backstory, or you might know it. You don't necessarily know why someone's gone through the things that they've done or done the things that they've done. You've just got to give them your absolute best, no matter what. You've got to be very resilient, which you shouldn't have to be, but it is a really difficult profession. The hours are long, the staffing is low. It's really, really hard. And you've got to look after yourself 100%, because if you're not looking after yourself, you cannot look after other people. What else? And you've got to be very caring and adaptable. You need to be able to walk into a room, read the room, and know what type of midwife you've got to be. If you have a lady or a birthing person who needs you to just shut up and sit there, that's what you've got to do. Or you need one that needs to have a really good chat. You need one that, you know, you kind of have to mother a bit more. You've got to be very adaptable. You've got to become that person's best friend or blend into the background until they need you. And it's the biggest skill that I found, is changing your entire personality if needs be to be what that woman needs, which is really tiring, but is a really good skill to have. A good thing to look up for interviews are the 6 C's, which I can't remember what they are now. Compassionate, courage, caring, something like that. And they're really good ones to mention in your interview, ways that you encompass those 6 C's.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And yeah, it's showing how you don't have to have all of these skills, you don't have to have these skills to a 100% level, but showing how you're starting to develop them and showing an awareness that you're going to try and develop them. But yeah, you really highlighted sort of patient-centered care, women-centered care really nicely there. So thank you so much. And Sarah, what members of the MDT do you work with? Short and snappy answer.
So, do you know what? We work with so many different people than what you'd actually think. So obviously all the different grades of doctors, from F1s, from like foundation, like fresh out of medical school, doctors who are just fab. I love them. We work with GPs in training that are on their kind of, you know, couple of months out that they have to do. And then we've got obviously, so I know the names have changed, like as in, so I still call them SHOs, but it's not that anymore, is it? It's something.
I think after F1 and F2, it's registrar maybe, or training.
Yeah,
ST1. I don't know what it means.
I'm going to still call them SHOs because that's all I know. So I'd say SHOs are probably, you know, they're our first port of call as a midwife, as in, unless it's something that needs to definitely be kind of dealt with by a registrar. Your SHO is your, you know, your person. I love them. The team at Midway are fantastic. And then, yeah, your registrars, and then obviously it kind of goes up. So you've got your consultants and then your professors, which again, we've got like Prof down in Fetal Med. I mean, amazing. The knowledge is unbelievable. But, you know, there's also so many other people that you kind of deal with. I mean, obviously, I know Fiona's going to have some to say as well, but social services, your GPs, your health visitors, your sexual health doctors as well. You know, if you've got a woman who's HIV positive, things like that, it does happen, and it's probably more so than what you think it would be. It's things like that you know, you kind of, your eyes are opened wide. Obviously, you've got your anaesthetists, then your neonatal team, so the team for the babies. So yeah, I mean, there are loads, and you work with them on a daily basis. And as a student, I'll put my hands up and say I was petrified pretty much of anybody that had the name title doctor, and I now don't know why. Because as a qualified midwife, I could not again be supported more by them, and they are just fantastic, and I love working with them. So yeah, there's lots. It is such, and you have to work well as a team for it to work, for women and babies to be safe, you have to work well as a team. And I think also you need to be able to learn, you need to realise that no matter what level of the doctor is, they're still a human being, they're still a normal person. And I think it's that I kind of forgot as a student. But I'll hand over to Fiona, so Fiona can kind of do her bit as a student side of things.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm glad the doctors are painting us in an all right light. But yeah, if I'm representing medical students, then hopefully it's okay. I'm crazy. Sorry, Fiona. Please shut me up.
It's pretty much the same as what Sarah said. So as a student, you're shadowing a midwife. So you work alongside all those people. So as important as they are, there's so many other people like behind the scenes. So you have like your governance midwives, your midwives that do all the computer work behind the scenes and auditing. You might not work necessarily alongside them, but they are there in the background. You've got like your ward clerks that will just print off any stickers that you need. And MSWs, honestly, as a student, I remember in first year, so it sounds really silly, but I never got taught how to make a bed. And then a midwife said to me, "Can you go and make the bed in room 3?" And I was like, I mean, I make my bed at home, but I don't know how you want me to do it. And one of the MSWs was like, "Come and work with me." During COVID, we went out and we was working as band 3s, which is the same rate as an MSW. And so many of them just took me under their wing and was like, "Just follow me around for the day," because you learn so much from them. They are like in the background, but they know so much. Like they can tell you where everything is like that because they have to know where it is. So yeah, there's a lot of other people, even like GPs and nurses in GP surgeries. In my trust in the community, we work in GP surgeries. So those people become your best friends because there might be medication that you haven't heard of. You can just pop next door and ask them. So there's a lot of people that you have to work with a lot of the time.
Also, Tash, can I quickly say as well, also the housekeeping staff, we could not function as an NHS without them, and genuinely they are amazing. And think during the pandemic and COVID, they have had to, you know, deep clean the rooms, deep clean the bays. They have just been phenomenal. And there's I mean, some of the housekeeping staff at the trust I work at, genuinely, they make my day when I see them because I just love them, and I talk to them about my personal life, and they are just the best people. And I think quite often we forget about just the importance of the housekeeping staff and just how amazing they are. And it's just like it's a team that I like to always kind of highlight just how brilliant they are at what they do.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really important. Thank you for adding that on. Yeah, so lovely the way that you speak about all the members of the MDT. I think if any if any of you are applying for midwifery, think about mentioning some of those people and some of those skills that the panelists have all spoken about so well. So thank you all for being so patient with holding back the questions. That's really helpful for my brain. And just a big thank you, first of all, to our wonderful speakers. I've learned so much, and you're all just so inspiring. I sound really surprised saying that, but you're all so inspiring. I can just imagine you're all absolutely brilliant midwives, and Fiona, I know you're going to be a brilliant midwife when the time comes very shortly. So we've had a few questions. Guys, I know we're sort of verging on over an hour. Feel free to drop out, speakers, guests alike, but let's try and get through some of these. These are good questions. So a couple directed at Fiona. What do you find most challenging as a student? And one about how do you balance uni work and placement with a social life? Two really good questions, I think, there.
So a challenge as a student for me would probably have to be the academic side of it. I might have gone to a grammar school, but I do have dyslexia, so academia doesn't come that easily to me. But I just kind of think, yes, you need to get it, and yes, you need to pass, but you don't need to write essays once you're a midwife. I think the practice side of it is the important part. So that for me is the most challenging bit. I've never failed a piece of work, but if you do, there's so much support from the university. You can resubmit things, so there is support there. I forgot what the other question was. I'm really sorry. I'll just scroll back and see if I can see it.
How do you balance uni, placement, social life?
So I think timekeeping. So like at the moment I'm doing my dissertation, so as tempting as it is to sit in bed and watch series after series, I know that's not going to get me my degree. So I tend to like make to-do lists, try not to put too much on it. If you put too much on a to-do list, it's daunting, you won't achieve it, and you'll feel bad for yourself for not doing it. So doing to-do lists, I try and like, especially with COVID at the moment, getting out for walks, getting your exercise in, clearing your head, try not to spend too much time on the computer because you'll just frazzle your brain, and trying to fit in days in your week to like step away from university. So whether that's going out with friends within COVID, obviously, sitting down and watching a film of your choice, just having a day to yourself to do nothing midwifery, I think is very important.
Brilliant. So a couple for Hannah and Sarah. Hannah and Sarah, you both have children. How did you find the degree alongside being a mum and juggling home life? Again, I think that's a really good question for those with children.
So for me, I have one son. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's not. I'm not going to pretend it's not, because it is. I was very fortunate. I mean, how Hannah did it, I don't know. I was fortunate in that I, at the time, had a husband. I don't anymore, but let's not get into that. Yeah, so at the time I had a husband, and he worked from home. And so again, I mean, he also worked and social hours though, so it is difficult. I actually did a post about this actually on my Instagram page just yesterday, kind of touching on what Fiona said, as in that because when you're a mum, there's other things that you need to do as well. So, you know, it wasn't just a case of I couldn't just sit down and just knuckle down with my work. I had to also be a mum. So I had to prioritise my time. And I found that, you know, kind of doing things late at night once my son was in bed fitted me better. It meant my daytime, even though he was at school, my daytime meant I could get everything done in the house, you know, prep dinner, etc., etc. And then at night time when he's in bed, I could crack on with my work. As I said, it's hard. Things do have to go a bit by the wayside. Like, you know, childcare by screen probably happened a few times. And I'm not going to deny that, you know, the iPad and the PlayStation certainly have come in handy numerous times, especially when I was trying to write a dissertation in the beginning of the pandemic this time last year. But it's 3 years and it's doable, and the only way I can really put it is that genuinely my son is so proud of me and what I've achieved. Like he'll be 10 in July, and he is so proud. Even only yesterday I was talking about my graduation and about the fact that it's been postponed, etc. And I said to him, I'm really looking forward to him going because I want him to be proud of me. And he was like, Mum, I'm so proud of everything you've done already. Like you're the best mum, you've done your degree, you're a midwife. I think having a good support network around you is a must. But my parents work, so did my husband's parents work. We didn't have childcare at the drop of a hat. You just have to make it work. I can't really explain how, but it works. It happens. You do it. I mean, Hannah, being on your own, I don't know. I genuinely don't know how you did it. I don't. It's amazing. But yeah, so Hannah might have a bit more of an insight, obviously coming from a single person side of things, because I did have support from my husband. But yeah, it works, and I don't know how really. You just kind of muddle through.
So like the key wonderful thing about being a single parent is that you don't have a husband to distract you in any way, which is amazing. I think I would have really struggled if I'd had to talk to someone every evening, which I didn't have to. And single parents are superheroes. It was absolutely not an issue for me to study a midwifery degree. I started a business at the same time. I worked. I did a degree. I raised 2 kids. My child got a diagnosis, just got on with it because I wanted to do it. My key things would get really good childcare, make sure that you have childcare, that you're not on shift worrying about what your kids are up to. I had a nanny, I still do, that was paid for by the student finance childcare grant, 85% of that. And now a lot of her wages are paid for by universal credit. So being a single parent pays. But it's prioritising your time. I can juggle 2 kids at 2 schools, a degree, a business, a blog. You know, what's studying as well is fine. You will be fine. Parents are amazing. We can juggle absolutely everything. So what's just one more thing? Like a big old degree. You can do it.
Make it sound so easy.
So easy.
But yeah, you've shown that you've both done it.
Mhm.
You did it. So hopefully anybody can do it, but I don't think I could. But yeah, that's amazing. As somebody, I can't remember who mentioned it, but yeah, trying to keep my life together without children sometimes is difficult. So full admiration here. There was a few questions directed at Melissa around, I think, postgraduate studying. Let me find them. Melissa, what role would one go for after a master's, PhD? What's the advantage, apart from presumably moving up bands of pay? And also one from Melissa about bereavement care, which I think you may have answered in the chat.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly answer the bereavement one. I would recommend the Beyond B one. I did it myself even last year. SANS also do one, and the Foundation for Infant Loss as well. Foundation for Infant Loss, you have to email them to get access to it, but you just email and it's easy. But yeah, any three of those, you get certificates at the end of it as well. But yeah, so postgrad options, so you can do Masters, MA, MRes. There's different, they're all level 7 study, or you can even do postgrad certificate or diploma, which is like a third or 2/3 of a master's. And you can start one and build up to a full master's over many years. I knew that I wanted to do a master's. I've known that since I was a child. So I just went straight in and did a 1-year full-time master's. But yeah, you can do it in lots of different disciplines. The most common masters that midwives and nurses do is the Advanced Clinical Practice Masters. And then you tailor it around your discipline. So midwifery, so you tailor it around midwifery. And that's a really good one to do if you want to become a consultant midwife or a band 7 midwife, or if you want to specialize in something like HIV, breastfeeding, diabetes, literally anything. Then you can do your dissertation and your research on whatever subject you're really interested in. So that's a good one, even if you don't know what area you want to go into, because some people want to go into research or lecturing or an academic career or stay 100% clinical. So that's a good one, because you can just pretty much do anything with that. So obviously I did mine in genomic medicine, but it hasn't hindered me at all. I've still gone to my doctorate, so that's fine. In terms of level 8 study, you've got the professional doctorate or you've got a traditional PhD. If you're wanting to remain clinical, like I am, because I want to be a consultant midwife in the ambulance service, and then in many decades to become the director of midwifery, then a professional doctorate is more advantageous than a traditional PhD. For me, definitely, because it's a requirement of the course to work alongside it, because you carry out research in your trust, and every assignment you do and your research is in your discipline. Whereas a PhD, I mean, it's a bit, I say easy, it's obviously not easy, but it's a bit easier because you don't have to work alongside it unless you have to, to support yourself financially. But professional doctorate is just, everything is aimed at your clinical discipline. So you can go into an academic career, research career, or stay clinical. Obviously, I want to be a consultant midwife. And then, so a lot of the roles, if you go into the NHS jobs website and you look through the person specifications and the job specifications, you'll be able to see on there what their requirements are to become, say, a consultant midwife or head of midwifery, director of midwifery, whatever you're interested in. And a lot of them will say that at least level 7 study, so masters or full masters, is desirable or even essential, a lot of them these days. And for sort of band 8 and 9 roles, a lot of them will say that they either want you to be in the process of doing a PhD or have one already. So I just thought I've just turned 26, so I just thought I'd get all this out of the way now, before, well, I don't want kids, but before I get married, I guess. So yeah.
Brilliant, thank you so much. I think we've answered most of the questions there. I think the most common ones that have come up. I just want to say a huge thank you to the 4 of you, and Marie, if she's somewhere listening. Thank you so much for giving up an hour and 20 minutes, 25 minutes, an hour and a half of your time this evening. It's been so inspiring. I've learned so much, and I'm sure everybody else listening has. So yeah, thank you. A big thank you from me. Just for everybody who's attended, I've popped the link to the feedback form in the chat. If you just fill that out, It's really helpful. It means we can give some sort of evidence to the speakers that they can use to help them in their career, and you guys will get a certificate. Any other questions, we'll pop the recording of this on our YouTube page. I hope the people on Facebook, I think there was about 40 of you listening. I hope that's all worked okay. But yeah, thank you so much for joining, everybody. Thank you for muting yourselves and everything. What's somebody saying? There's no option for access students. Do we just leave it blank? Oh, sorry, that's my mistake. Just leave it blank or just put something else. Don't worry, I will make sure that I put an option for access students on the feedback form next time. Apologies about that. Thank you so much, Melissa, Sarah, Fiona and Hannah.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I will pop you an email with the letter of appreciation or something, whatever Nikki, the other co-founder, who's a lot more organised, came up with. I'm just the giggler, she's the brains. But yeah, thank you so much. I will let you get on with the rest of your evenings.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.